The cold in Antarctica doesn't just freeze. It erases. It erases footprints, erases evidence, erases time itself. And for decades, it has erased the truth about what really lies beneath its shifting walls of ice. The world believes Antarctica is a vast, empty wasteland, an untouched wilderness locked away beneath storms and silence, a frozen desert where only penguins and research scientists dare to tread. But that is the story we were meant to believe, the comfortable lie we've been fed since childhood. The real story is darker, older, buried under layers of secrecy far thicker than the ice itself. The greatest archaeological discovery in human history didn't happen in Egypt or Mesopotamia or Central America. It happened here at the bottom of the world. And it was covered up before we ever knew it existed. Because Antarctica does not simply hide the remnants of a forgotten world. It hides the truth about our own. It holds the answer to questions we've been asking since the dawn of civilization. Where did we come from? Were we alone? And most terrifying of all, what came before us? It began like most revelations do, with something accidental. A glitch. A technical error. A moment of truth disguised as noise. In the early 2000s, classified military satellites, equipped with ground-penetrating radar, began picking up geometric patterns deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Perfect angles, straight edges, massive rectangular footprints stretching for miles. These weren't natural formations. They weren't mountains or ridges or ancient glacier scars carved by the patient hand of erosion. They were structures. Enormous, engineered structures. Structures that defied every explanation geologists could offer. When the images surfaced internally, military analysts were ordered to reclassify them as artifact interference, technical glitches in the imaging software. But the data returned again and again, different satellites, different angles, different radar frequencies, and every time, the shapes grew clearer, more defined, more impossible to dismiss. Someone or something had built beneath Antarctica long before it froze. Long before humans walked upright. Long before recorded history began. But this wasn't the first time someone stumbled onto the truth. In the 1950s, during the height of Cold War paranoia, when the world teetered on the edge of nuclear annihilation, the US military launched a series of secret Antarctic expeditions under the guise of geological research. These missions, especially those codenamed Operation Iceward, Snowhaven, and the most suspicious of all, Deep Freeze Echo, were not searching for oil, climate data, or mineral deposits. They were looking for something hidden, something enormous, something the government suspected was buried in the ice long before satellites ever confirmed it. The question is, how did they know to look? Declassified Nazi documents from World War II reveal that Hitler's regime sent multiple expeditions to Antarctica between 1938 and 1943. They claimed entire regions of the continent for Germany, naming one section New Swabia. Official reports stated they were establishing whaling stations and claiming territory for the Reich. But whaling stations don't require submarines, advanced drilling equipment, and dozens of scientists specializing in archaeology and ancient languages. The Nazis found something. And when the war ended, that information didn't disappear. It was absorbed by American intelligence during Operation Paperclip, the same program that brought Nazi rocket scientists to the United States. Within a decade, America was drilling into Antarctica. They knew exactly where to look. The reports from these missions have never been declassified, but fragments leaked from retired officers paint a chilling picture. One officer, who requested anonymity before his death in 2009, wrote, "We were told to expect extreme weather, limited visibility, and unpredictable terrain. Nothing prepared us for what we actually found. The briefing documents had been sanitized, stripped of any real information. They sent us down there blind, but whoever wrote those documents knew. They knew what we'd find, and they sent us anyway." His notes describe towering walls of black stone protruding from the ice, structures smooth to the touch, warm despite the negative 40-degree temperatures, and covered in symbols no one recognized. Symbols that seemed to shift slightly when you looked away, as if they were alive, as if they were watching back. He claimed they weren't ruins. They were intact. Preserved perfectly, as if frozen yesterday, rather than millennia ago. And that was the problem. Because if the structures beneath Antarctica were intact, it meant they were preserved. Preserved intentionally. Sealed deliberately. Sealed for a reason no one could yet understand. After several expeditions disappeared without explanation, entire teams vanishing with their equipment, their research, their evidence, the US government abruptly pushed for the Antarctic Treaty, an international agreement signed in 1959 that placed the entire continent under cooperative scientific control. On paper, it sounded noble, a triumph of peaceful international cooperation. In reality, it placed Antarctica behind one of the strictest multi-nation lockdowns in the world. No militaries allowed, except for scientific support. No private excavations. No unrestricted exploration. No flying over certain coordinates without approval. No drilling below certain depths without international clearance. No weapons testing. No mineral extraction. A continent of ice, sealed off as if it were a crime scene. And it was. The first undeniable evidence of something buried beneath the ice came from a Soviet team working near Lake Vostok, a subglacial lake hidden beneath 13,000 feet of ice. A lake the size of Lake Ontario, sealed beneath the ice for 15 million years. The Russians drilled down expecting pristine water samples, ancient microorganisms perhaps, evidence of life that evolved in complete isolation from the rest of the planet. Instead, they triggered something unexpected. Their instruments registered a sudden temperature spike, an impossible pocket of warmth rising from deep below the lake bed. The drill bit entered an air cavity where there should have been nothing but solid ice and freezing water. When they attempted to send a probe down, their equipment malfunctioned. Batteries drained instantly, as if something was siphoning the power. Hard drives corrupted with data that looked like white noise, but showed patterns when analyzed. Patterns that repeated. Cables snapped from sudden tension, pulled downward by force that shouldn't exist in a vacuum. Before the line broke completely, the probe transmitted just one image. A smooth, curved metallic surface with symmetrical markings. Not corroded, not ancient, not damaged. Perfect. The Russian government immediately classified the data. The scientists involved were flown home within 48 hours and placed under strict silence agreements. Non-disclosure contracts backed by threats that went far beyond career termination. The excavation site was sealed with cement and marked as structurally compromised. But rumors leaked. They always do. A whistleblower who worked as a technician on the project described the metallic surface as black like obsidian, but softer to the touch, almost warm, like touching living skin. He said it was covered in markings that resembled a hybrid of hieroglyphs and circuitry, as if someone had merged ancient language with advanced technology. He was dismissed as insane, diagnosed with polar psychosis, a condition caused by extreme isolation and stress. Months later, he vanished. His family was told he'd wandered off during a hiking trip in Siberia. His body was never found. Meanwhile, something was happening beneath the ice that no one could hide. The ice shelf itself was changing. Heat signatures began rising from beneath the glaciers, not random melting patterns, but organized heat, forming straight lines, perfect angles, and symmetrical shapes. The melting was not random, it was architectural, as if the structure beneath the ice was generating heat, or something inside it was. Thermal imaging satellites detected these patterns repeatedly. Engineers ruled out volcanic activity. The heat distribution was too precise, too controlled. Geothermal vents don't create perfect grids. Nature doesn't build in straight lines. But something beneath Antarctica was, and it was warming up. Then came the radio bursts. Short, rhythmic pulses began disrupting communications across several Antarctic research bases. At first, scientists assumed interference from solar storms, space weather that occasionally wreaks havoc on electronics. But the patterns weren't solar. They repeated with mathematical precision, sequences too specific to be natural, too purposeful to be random. The pulses grew stronger near certain coordinates, particularly around the South Pole and the forbidden zones near Queen Maud Land, the same region the Nazis had claimed as New Swabia decades earlier. These zones had long been off-limits, guarded by unusually strict international protection. Satellites were restricted from photographing certain areas. Flyovers were banned without explicit clearance from multiple governments. Research stations near them reported increased military oversight, armed personnel who weren't scientists, communication blackouts, restricted movement. When researchers analyzed the radio pulses, they found something alarming. The frequency shifts matched the seismic tremors beneath the ice. Something was responding. Something enormous. Something beneath the continent was waking up. The tremors weren't earthquakes. They were too regular, too consistent. They pulsed at intervals that matched the radio bursts, as if the structure beneath the ice was communicating, sending signals, or receiving them. The story might have ended there, quietly buried in classified files, dismissed as conspiracy theory, forgotten by everyone except internet paranoids, if not for one event in 2016. A US satellite captured an image of what appeared to be a massive doorway carved into the side of a newly exposed ice cliff near the Transantarctic Mountains. The opening was rectangular, at least 80 feet tall and 50 feet wide, and framed by black stone that stood in stark contrast to the white ice surrounding it. The proportions were too perfect. The angles too precise. The scale too massive to be natural. Within days, the image was erased from public databases. Within hours, military aircraft were spotted circling the region, transport planes, helicopters, even fighter jets maintaining patrol patterns. And then the disappearances began. A private expedition led by wealthy adventurer Nathaniel Pierce vanished after reporting a dark entrance in the ice during a climbing expedition. Pierce had funded the trip himself, avoiding official channels, bringing along a documentary crew to film what he called the discovery of the century. Their last transmission, recorded on helmet cameras later recovered by search teams. This thing is not natural. The walls, God, the walls are moving, not shifting, not settling, moving, like breathing, like the stone itself is alive. We need to... The feed cuts to static. Search teams never found the group. Their GPS devices stopped transmitting on the exact same day. Satellites were scrambled over the region. Their equipment was discovered scattered across a 2-mile radius, as if dropped from a great height. But there were no bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle. Just empty gear and unanswered questions. Then there was the case of Dr. Lena Hartwell, a geophysicist stationed at the Concordia research base. She had been studying seismic activity patterns when she began noticing anomalies, tremors that formed sequences, vibrations that contained information. She emailed her colleague a single sentence before disappearing. "The structure is not a ruin, it's a system, and I think it knows we're here." Her cabin was found empty hours later, the door wide open despite -40-degree temperatures, her belongings untouched. Coffee still warm in the mug, computer still running, but her notes and research files were missing, specifically her seismic data analysis and her translations of the symbol patterns she'd been studying. She has never been seen again. The official report listed her as lost due to disorientation in a whiteout event. But there was no storm that day. The sky was clear. Every attempt to expose the truth is met with silence. Satellite images are blurred or corrupted. Files are misplaced or accidentally deleted. Researchers are reassigned to different projects. Funding gets mysteriously cut. Reports vanish from databases. Whistleblowers meet tragic ends. And yet the evidence keeps surfacing. Because Antarctica can only hide so much. Because the ice is melting. Because whatever is beneath is revealing itself, whether we're ready or not. In 2020, a section of the Thwaites Glacier, nicknamed the Doomsday Glacier, because its collapse could raise sea levels by over 2 feet, broke apart in a way that baffled climate scientists. The fracture pattern was too clean, too linear. Glaciers don't break in straight lines. The break revealed a vertical shaft descending deep into the ice, so deep that the bottom disappeared into darkness beyond what lights could penetrate. The opening was unnaturally straight. The inner walls showed signs of heat exposure, smooth, almost polished surfaces, as if something melted its way upward from below. Not gradually, but recently. At the same time, seismographs recorded a strange tremor pattern, a pulse that repeated at perfect intervals, like the ticking of a clock or a heartbeat. Scientists privately dubbed it the heartbeat. The name was more accurate than they realized. Declassified documents later revealed the tremor frequency matched the radio bursts detected years earlier. Something beneath the continent was generating energy, electromagnetic, geothermal, and acoustic, simultaneously. Not randomly. Not chaotically. But rhythmically. Purposefully. Mathematically. It was a system. A machine that had been dormant. Or a city awakening from hibernation. The most shocking discovery came from a whistleblower inside the U.S. Geological Survey. She leaked an internal scan that suggested something astonishing. A honeycomb of chambers beneath the ice. each perfectly hexagonal, connected by tunnels and shafts that formed a network of impossible complexity. The entire network spanned hundreds of miles. The design was deliberate, the symmetry precise, the scale unimaginable. Some chambers were large enough to fit skyscrapers, caverns with ceilings that rose hundreds of feet high. Others were narrow, winding, with patterns etched into the walls that resembled circuit boards or neural pathways. The scan also revealed something else: of moving heat signatures. Moving, not flowing like lava or drifting like warm air. Moving with purpose, with direction, with intelligence. As if something inside the structure was active. As if something was navigating the corridors. As if something was patrolling. Military analysts speculated they were geothermal vents creating convection currents. Scientists said they were instrument anomalies. But the whistleblower insisted. They were not vents, they moved in patterns, they responded to our scans. When we pinged one section with sonar, the heat signatures would move away from that area and converge on another. They were not vents, they were tracking us back. But why would a buried structure respond to human activity? Unless it wasn't abandoned. Unless it wasn't dead. Unless it wasn't a ruin but a vault. A vault built to remain sealed. A vault that reacts to intrusion. A vault that awakens when the world warms. A vault designed to protect something. Or contain something. And now the world is warming. As global temperatures rise, Antarctica's ice recedes at an accelerating rate, revealing more of the structure. More black stone emerging from white ice. More symbols carved into surfaces that should have eroded over millions of years but remain pristine. More tunnels opening, more chambers exposed, more of the truth that governments have tried desperately to bury. But the truth is too big to hide, too vast to contain, too important to suppress forever. Because Antarctica is not just a continent. It's a message written in stone and ice, a warning left by those who came before, a leftover piece of a world that came before ours. A world erased by catastrophe, perhaps the same catastrophe that froze Antarctica in the first place. A world whose survivors may have built a sanctuary beneath the ice, deep enough to survive whatever destroyed their civilization. A world whose final creation now stirs beneath our feet, responding to our presence, awakening as we draw near. The governments of the world aren't trying to protect Antarctica. They're trying to protect us from whatever is beneath it. Every treaty, every restriction, every classified mission, every silenced scientist, all of it designed not to hide the truth from us, but to keep us away from something they don't understand, something they fear, something they know we're not ready for. And the most terrifying possibility is not that a civilization existed beneath Antarctica. It's that part of it still does. Waiting in chambers that never fully froze. Watching through sensors we can't detect. Awakening as the ice melts and the world returns to the temperature it once knew. Because if the structure is intact, if it's responding to our presence, if it's generating power and heat and electromagnetic pulses, then it was designed to do exactly that. It was designed to wait. It was designed to endure. It was designed to wake when the time was right. And that time is now. The countdown has begun. The pulses are growing stronger, now detected not just in Antarctica, but in strange electromagnetic anomalies across the globe. The chambers are warming. Ice core samples show temperature increases that defy all climate models. The walls are clearing, revealing more symbols, more writing, more instructions we're only beginning to understand. The signals are getting louder, picked up by radio telescopes, mistaken for deep space transmissions, but originating from beneath our feet. Whatever sleeps beneath Antarctica has noticed us. And now the question isn't what lies under the ice. The question isn't even why it was sealed away. The question is, what happens when it wakes up? What happens when the ice melts away completely? What happens when the doors open? What happens when whatever built those chambers decides the time has come? Are we being warned? Or welcomed? Are we discovering our past? Or triggering our future? The cold in Antarctica erases everything, but some things refuse to be erased. Some things are too powerful to stay buried. Some truths are too important to remain hidden. And now, as the world warms and the ice recedes, Antarctica is finally ready to tell its story. Whether we're ready to hear it or not,